Imagine you're running for city council.
Right.
You walk into a room, expecting to give your standard polished speech about, I don't know, filling potholes and improving the community.
Yeah, the usual.
Exactly. But instead, this local union sits you down, they slide a highly technical contract across the table, and they ask you to explain exactly how you plan to navigate California Labor Code Section 1777.5.
Oh, man.
And if you blink, or if you try to, pivot to a talking point, you lose their endorsement entirely.
Yeah, it is a completely different arena. We are so used to the glossy veneer of local politics, the mailers, the smiling photos.
Yeah.
But when you actually look at how political endorsements operate at the grassroots level, it's raw. It is fiercely demanding, and, well, it's basically the absolute definition of democracy in the trenches.
Okay, let's unpack this because that is exactly our mission for this deep dive. We're looking at the mechanics of grassroots political accountability, and we're focusing on a highly specific, very localized race, the 2026 San Diego City Council District 4 election.
Yeah.
And we are not just reading news clippings today. We have a literal stack of primary sources. We're looking at actual candidate endorsement questionnaires and panel evaluations.
Right.
And these were prepared by the National Black Contractors Association, the NBCA, and the National United Black Carpenters Union Local 100.
Yeah, and our primary guide through these documents is this really fascinating figure named Desmond.
Oh.
And just a quick note, if you're reviewing the raw audio files of these evaluations, there is a brief glitch early on where he accidentally introduces himself as Jasmine.
Right, I heard that.
Yeah, but he quickly clarifies that he is indeed Desmond. He's a licensed general contractor and the author of both the Black Carpenters Guide and the Black Contractors Guide.
Yeah, and he sits on the evaluation panels for these candidates. And I just want to frame this for anyone listening, whether you live in San Diego or not. This isn't just a story about one city council seat.
No, not at all.
This is a granular blueprint for how really any community can force politicians to go way beyond generic promises.
What's fascinating here is the sheer forensic nature of the accountability they're demanding. But, before we get into the specifics of those mechanics, we kind of need to establish the lens through which we're examining this.
Definitely.
Because the documents we're looking at from Desmond and the union, they raise several highly charged, really complex political, legal, and social issues.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
They touch on some of the most volatile debates in the country right now.
Right. So looking purely at the political strategy here, our goal is to analyze the tactics and the specific concerns of this union.
Right. We're totally neutral here.
Exactly. We are acting as impartial analysts of this political process. We're unpacking the strategic positioning of the union and the intense, multifaceted pressures. We are doing that without taking any position on the underlying political debates themselves.
Right. We're dissecting the how and the why of their strategy. So to understand why these organizations are throwing such incredibly rigid questions at the candidates, we can't just start with the questionnaire.
Right.
We have to understand this deep well of frustration they're drawing from. The historical context here is heavy.
It's the foundation of everything they do. The NBCA document actually features a preamble that lays out a very specific historical grievance. It states that African-American contractors were once, the driving force and the backbone of the construction industry. They were the ones building the communities, creating the jobs, training the next generation of workers.
But the preamble points out that today they face systemic exclusion from those very same opportunities. And the language they use is incredibly deliberate.
Precisely. The text explicitly states that this exclusion is not accidental.
Wow.
They argue it's the result of a deeply ingrained culture of exclusionary policies. And the mechanism of this exclusion, it isn't just a vague feeling.
Right.
It happens through, networking lockouts, discriminatory bonding requirements, and these informal bidding rings that basically say to Black contractors, we don't have to include you, and we don't want to include you.
Gosh.
So they're arguing that this is a system that must be confronted and replaced with enforceable equity.
Yeah, and you can hear that deep skepticism in Desmond's evaluation. He talks about how Black communities have been sold a basket of goods for years by politicians.
Oh, yeah.
He is just so tired of what he explicitly calls lip service. I mean, it's like a company where executive management keeps printing diversity in bold letters on their glossy corporate brochures, right? But the actual hiring managers out on the job sites just keep tossing the resumes in the trash. The brochure looks great, but the actual mechanism of hiring hasn't changed at all.
That is the exact friction point. The union is just entirely past the point of accepting symbolic gestures. A nice speech at a town hall, that does not put a carpenter to work. So this deep-seated historical frustration, it directly informs the highly strategic nature of the interviews they conduct. They aren't looking for friends. They're looking for functional levers of power.
Which brings us to the actual candidates facing this panel. Let's look at candidate one, Martha Abraham. Desmond sat directly on her interview panel.
He did.
And his feedback shows us what grassroots organizers actually value in a room, face to face.
Yeah, Desmond noted something very specific about her communication style. He respected that she didn't use what he calls evasionary tactics.
The classic political pivot. You ask a politician a direct question about, say, zoning, and suddenly they're talking about their grand vision for the future of the children.
Right.
They just dance around the perimeter of the concern without ever addressing the actual mechanics of the issue.
Exactly the behavior Desmond is screening for. And Martha Abraham didn't do that.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, she scored very high on his personal evaluation because she seemed genuinely concerned with the specific issues facing Black contractors and the local 100 apprenticeship program.
Yeah.
She tackled the questions head on.
But, and this is a massive caveat for Desmond, he still holds back a full commitment.
Right.
He mentions he's leaning toward endorsing her personally as an independent voter, because she seemed headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
However, he explicitly says he needs to do more digging. And he's looking forward to seeing the proof of the pudding.
That phrase, that is the defining ethos of his political engagement. A strong interview is just phase one.
Right.
The true test comes later. And we see how rigorous that test is when we look at the demands presented to another candidate, Henry Foster III.
Yes. Here's where it gets really interesting. Because you read the questionnaire for Henry Foster III, and it completely drops the political rhetoric.
Oh, absolutely.
The union isn't asking for general support for working families. They're asking for targeted, binding action plans. Like, for instance, they demand to know what the candidate will do to support their specific apprenticeship program through inclusion in collective bargaining agreements or CBAs and project labor agreements, PLAs.
And that distinction is vital. If we connect this to the bigger picture, a project labor agreement isn't just a vague statement of union support. It is a pre-hire contract.
Wait, let me pause you there, because I see PLAs thrown around in local news constantly. But what is the actual mechanism? Like, why is a piece of paper so powerful for a union?
Because a PLA dictates the exact terms of employment for every single worker on a specific project before a single shovel even hits the dirt.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it guarantees union wages, dictates safety standards, and, crucially for Desmond's group, it often forces contractors to hire directly through the union's hiring hall rather than just, bringing in their own outside crews.
Ah, okay. So it bypasses the open market free-for-all. If the city signs a PLA for a new library, the contractor can't just bring in a non-union crew from 3 counties over to undercut the local workers.
Exactly.
They have to play by the union's rules on that specific site.
Precisely. And they don't stop at PLAs. The questionnaire actually cites specific legal codes.
Yeah.
They bring up Labor Code Section 1777.5, which mandates the hiring and training of 20% of federal and state certified apprentices on public works.
Wait, hold on. If Labor Code 1777.5 is already a state law, requiring the 20% apprentices, why does a local union need a city council member to promise to enforce it?
Well,
Shouldn't the state labor board be doing that automatically?
in theory, yes. But in practice, state enforcement agencies are often backlogged, they're underfunded, or just painfully slow to investigate violations.
I see.
By the time the state actually finds a contractor for not hiring apprentices, the building is already finished and the jobs are gone.
Jeez.
But a city council member, they control the immediate purse strings.
Right.
A local council member can stall a contractor's final payout or block them from future city bids if they aren't complying with the code. The union is forcing the candidate to prove they understand this regulatory mechanism.
That is brilliant. It completely removes the wiggle room. If a candidate doesn't know what a PLA is or what Labor Code 1770-70-70-25 requires, they're going to fail this interview instantly. But, this brings up a logistical question. If they lock in these strict hiring quotas in PLAs, what happens when the city decides to build the new community center or fix the roads 3 zip codes away?
Ah, and that leads directly to the core geographical tension outlined in these documents. District 4 is located in southeast San Diego.
Right.
And Desmond points out a massive glaring disparity in how public funds are deployed.
Yeah, he notes that residents of District 4 are taxpayers, just like everyone else. But he argues that too often their tax dollars are siphoned off and funneled into infrastructure projects in highly affluent areas, like he specifically names Del Mar and La Jolla.
Yeah, he explicitly says that the money goes to places where they don't even need the work done.
Wow.
Meanwhile, District 4, which has experienced long-term infrastructure and public investment challenges, just gets left behind. The mechanism of capital flight in public works is what they are fighting.
Right.
When the city spends money, the union demands that the money must be funneled into projects in their own community, employing local Black workers right where the work is actually needed.
And it makes total economic sense.
Okay.
Keep the taxpayer money in the community that paid it to fix the infrastructure in that community using the workers from that community. But this is where the candidate questionnaire dives into some incredibly deep legal waters. Let's talk about Proposition 209.
Right. Proposition 209 is a California ballot proposition that fundamentally altered public contracting. It bans affirmative action, meaning it prevents public agencies from explicitly targeting outreach or hiring programs based on race or gender.
Okay.
And the union also points to recent national rollbacks on EDI equity, diversity, and inclusion programs.
So they're basically asking the candidate to play 3D chess here. It's like trying to prescribe life-saving medicine to a specific patient, but the hospital rules say you can only drop the pills from a helicopter and just hope the right person catches them.
That is a highly accurate way to look at the legal constraint. The state law says you cannot target a contract strictly based on race.
So what is the mechanism to bypass it? Like, if you can't say, we are giving this contract to a Black-owned firm, how does a local politician deliver on Desmond's demands without getting sued?
Well, the questionnaire is demanding to know the candidate's specific workaround. A savvy politician will often switch from racial targeting to geographical and socioeconomic targeting.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah, they might write the city contract to heavily favor businesses located in specific zip codes that have historically suffered from high unemployment, or require contractors to hire workers who fall below a certain income threshold. The union wants to know if the candidate understands how to use these alternative legal levers to ensure Black-owned, minority-owned, small, and locally based contractors actually get a chance to compete.
And they aren't just talking about small sidewalk repairs either. The document specifically references holding contractors accountable when they receive public project commitments of $70 million or more.
Yeah.
That is a staggering amount of money and a massively complex legal needle to thread for any local city council member.
It really is. But the questionnaire goes even further. It moves from the legal structure of the contracts to the actual physical realities of the job site. And, from a purely tactical standpoint, the union puts the candidate in a fascinating and very precarious bind with question number 6 for Henry Foster III.
Yeah, this question touches on safety, language, and immigration. The premise they present to the candidate is that having Spanish-only speaking workers on dangerous construction sites prevents the hiring and training of legal citizens.
Right. And the union's assertion here is rooted in workplace hazard mitigation. They argue that dangerous construction sites require absolute, clear communication.
Of course.
When steel beams are moving overhead, a misunderstood shout can be fatal. Therefore, they demand that English be required as the language of the land by all workers on publicly funded, taxpayer-paid projects.
So they ask Henry Foster III directly, quote, "What will you do to support job safety and training through English as the primary language in a dangerous construction industry?"
And examining this purely as a political maneuver, it is an incredibly forceful tactic. The union is using their endorsement questionnaire to place the candidate directly in the crosshairs of multiple intersecting controversies.
Right. Labor rights, safety regulations, immigration politics.
Exactly. For a local progressive politician, taking a hardline stance on English-only job sites carries significant political risk with other voter demographics.
Yeah. And again, just as a reminder, we're staying totally neutral on the politics of this.
Absolutely. We're just looking at the bind it creates. The union is tying this directly to the economic survival and physical safety of their members, forcing the candidate to prioritize their specific local constituency over, broader political optics.
It just highlights the sheer weight of what is being asked of these candidates.
Yeah.
You can't just smile and shake hands. You have to navigate The history of exclusion, the geography of tax allocation, the legal maze of Prop 209, and the intense politics of job site language.
It is a legislative gauntlet.
So what does this all mean? Let's say a candidate actually runs this gauntlet. They give great answers, they promise to enforce the labor codes, they pledge to keep the infrastructure money local. How does Desmond and the union actually measure if that politician kept their word once they're sitting in the city council seat?
Well, Desmond has a very specific and highly visible metric for this. It strips away all the political doublespeak. We can call it the freeway test.
I love the freeway test.
Yeah.
Because talk is cheap. Desmond says he can listen to politicians talk about what they're going to do all day long. But the actual proof, the proof in the pudding, as he keeps saying, isn't in a policy white paper, and it isn't in a press release celebrating a new city budget.
No, the proof is entirely physical. Desmond says he'll believe a politician has kept their promise when he is literally driving by on the freeway, looks out his window at a publicly funded construction site, and actually sees Black workers earning a good living on that job.
Yeah.
Or when he sees Black contractors actively running those major $70 million city-funded projects.
It's so visceral. You can't fake the freeway test. Look, if a politician can't spin it. Either the workers are physically on the scaffolding or they aren't.
Right.
It is the ultimate metric of accountability.
Right.
And that leads to the final and perhaps most poignant demand the union makes of these candidates. It's about access.
Yeah. Question number 7 in the Henry Foster III document addresses a cycle that is as old as the democratic process itself. The union notes a long history of elected officials who come to the community, ask for votes, get elected, and then immediately shut their doors.
They deny access to the very community leaders who helped them secure the seat in the first place.
Right up until a few years later, when re-election time rolls around and suddenly the doors swing wide open again.
Right. Hey, remember me? I've been so busy, but I need your endorsement again to my next campaign.
Exactly. So the union demands an upfront written commitment to break this cycle. They ask, quote, "What will you do to keep the doors of communication open to the National United Black Carpenters Union Local 100 and its leaders?"
Wow.
They're demanding a continuous year-round seat at the table. They want the mechanism of access formalized, not just left to the whim of a politician's schedule.
And this is the massive takeaway for anyone listening to this deep dive. Whether you are passionate about neighborhood zoning or fighting for better school funding or advocating for local business grants, true civic engagement isn't just about securing a friendly meeting before Election Day.
No, it's not.
It is about creating measurable physical benchmarks for success, like the freeway test, and demanding continuous structural access to the people in power.
It is the necessary shift from passive hope to active contractual accountability.
Yeah. So to recap our journey through these documents today, we started with the community's deep historical frustration over being systematically excluded from the construction industry they helped build. We saw how organizations like the MBCA and Local 100 translated that frustration into highly technical forensic questionnaires. We watched them force candidates to figure out how to navigate the geography of District 4 Capital Flight, the legal roadblocks of Proposition 209, and the intense realities of job site safety.
Yeah.
And ultimately we learned that for grassroots organizers, it all comes down to Desmond's freeway test.
Which really raises an important question, one that expands far beyond San Diego and really strikes at the heart of our democratic process.
Oh.
Yeah, if lip service and evasionary tactics are the standard currency of local campaigns, how might communities fundamentally redesign the post-election follow-up process?
Okay, I'm listening.
If a community group goes through all this effort to establish benchmarks like the freeway test, could they implement a formal citizens' performance review halfway through a politician's term?
Oh, wow. Like a midterm report card, but with actual consequences.
Exactly. And taking it a step further, could a community group hold the credible threat of an immediate recall effort over that politician's head if the proof in the pudding hasn't been baked by year 2?
Gosh.
Right. If Desmond doesn't see those workers from the freeway by the midterm mark, does the community have the infrastructure to pull that candidate out of office before the end of their term? Implementing a mechanism like that, well, it completely changes the power dynamic, shifting it from the elected official back to the electorate.
That is a fascinating concept, a midterm citizen performance review with real legislative teeth. It takes the ideas in these endorsement questionnaires and turns them into a constant looming reality for the politician. It's a whole new way to think about how we govern our own neighborhoods and force accountability.
Truly.
Well, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the real-world mechanics of holding power accountable. Until next time, keep looking for the proof in the pudding.